Hello, I'm Beth. Welcome to this yoga class for over 50. I'm over 50 myself, so I created this over 50 yoga SOS class to focus on strengthening, opening, and stretching. So we need all of those things as we get older. Really, any age you are, those are important components of being healthy. So we're going to start with a little strengthening, move to some opening, and then we'll do some soothing stretching at the end. When we strengthen, we're doing a few different things. We're working on strengthening muscle, we're working on strengthening bones, and we're also working on balance. That's part of the strength. We're going to start by coming down to all fours. So all fours, your hands, fingers are spread wide, hands are directly under your shoulders, knees are under your hips, and you can have more padding if you would like. We're going to take one foot, take your foot closest to the camera if you're following me, or closest to your screen, out to the back, toes tucked under. So already we're starting to have a little balance where we're on an all fours position, and now we're in an unstable or a staggered all fours. We're weight bearing on the hands, that's also part of the strength. And then we're engaging the front body, our core muscles, to hold us here. Let's switch to the other leg, re-find your center, back to the second leg. Try to engage your muscles in the front by pulling the front hip points a little toward each other. And then back to the first leg. So this time we're going to again slide the leg out behind us, and if it feels okay for you today, slide the opposite arm a little ahead. Now we're creating more instability in the body. Every time we're asymmetrical, we're working on balance. Come back in, second side. We'll stay here a few times. So continue going side to side at your pace. Stay with just the leg if taking the arm into it feels too unstable. One more on each side. And then if it feels okay, last version, we're going to raise the arm and the leg, reaching them long away from each other, keeping the center engaged. This is called bird dog or table balance. Second side. One more time on each side as a little bit of a dynamic motion to warm up the areas that we're strengthening. And then last time we're going to try for a little hold. Now as you do your hold, you can absolutely touch the toes down, touch the fingertips down at any point. If you're able to hold, the longer the hold, the more we strengthen muscle and bone as we're pulling muscles away from the bone. That's part of how we build the bone strength. And of course, we're balancing here. We'll try for a few more seconds, maybe get a little longer, maybe drawing in a little bit more in the core. Okay, come down and rest. And maybe take just a moment off your hands before we go to the other side. One last side, reaching the second leg out, second arm front, coming into that balance, drawing everything in so that your back gets a little longer, reaching the heel away. I have to remind myself to do that, reaching the hand in the opposite direction. Gaze stays down, maybe a little bit ahead, but try not to stretch your neck up. That's not going to feel good on the back of your neck. Few more seconds here. All right, and then we'll come down. We're going to do one more pose, weight bearing on our upper body, because that's how we can build some upper body strength in yoga. Rather than on our hands, this time we're going to do it on our forearms. So we're going to take a forearm plank that is going to start from that all fours. Back into your all fours position. This time put your elbows where your hands were. Now your hands can be flat on the mat or they can be interlaced. It's up to you. So start here, draw in your center in the same way.
And then just as we did before, we're going to take one leg back, bring it in, try the other leg. And then we're going to go for both legs. If this feels way too intense, immediately you have the option to touch your knees down, keeping your back in this long plank shape. And you can keep your toes tucked or your feet can come up. But the important thing is we want to keep this plank shape with the body, so we're bearing weight on the upper body, strengthening the muscles and the bone in our arms, our shoulders. So you could try a short hold in this lower position, and then if you feel like you have a little bit more strength, maybe try a few seconds with the toes tucked, knees lifted. I'm going to do my last seconds with my knees down. Really engage. All right, let go, release. You can walk your hands in.
We're going to come to a standing position. I have some blocks here, so do use your props. Props can help us stay in postures longer. That's important for building strength. And they also provide some resistance, another important component of our strength building practice. So take one of your blocks and we'll come to stand. I'm going to turn sideways for this. We're going to use our block in a chair pose. Turn sideways on your mat. Your feet are about the distance apart of your front hip points. They can be a little wider if that's more comfortable for you, so you get to choose. Your hands come on the short sides of the block, pressed in the block. So this is the resistance here. Now I have a lightweight foam block. If you have a heavier block or a book or even a little light dumbbell that you're holding between your hands, that will be even more resistance for you. So with our hands straight out in front of us, we're going to start to sit back as if we're sitting in a chair, thinking about bending at the ankles, the knees, and the hips, trying to do that sort of in one smooth piece, pressing the hand into the block. And then we're going to come right back up again. You can bring the block down in front of you. We'll do that a few times. Press the hands into the block, raise the block to about chest height as you sit down, and come back up. So when we do these poses dynamically, we also start to move into a little bit more opening, which is what we might think of as flexibility, mobility, keeping our joints healthy. Sort of like oiling the joints. You can almost feel that. I hear a little bit of creakiness in my knees as I do this. So like oiling and getting everything ready. And then this time we come back down, find a place where you can comfortably hold. That's called going to your edge. So not your maximum, but you're working a little bit, and then we'll hold here. Now we're going for about 30-second holds in this practice. You can work up to a minute of hold or even longer hold. Every time you hold, every time you add to your hold, you are going to build strength. And there's great research that has shown that yoga does build bone strength. Few more seconds or one or two more breaths. Maybe you feel like you can start finding a new edge, going a little deeper. And then moving with breath, press your hands into the block, so keep that engaged as you lower the block down. All right, I'm going to turn around to face front. We're going to do another pose. This is going to be similar, in which we're going to be moving with the block in our hands. This is going to be a dynamic mountain pose, but we're going to have our feet in a little bit of a staggered, maybe even a tightrope position to up the balance element a little bit more. So I'll turn back to the side, slide one foot in front of the other, and you want your feet to start about hip width apart, and the other foot is about one footprint in front. Now stay here for a moment, just in the stagger mountain. Have your block in your hand, but you can let it release at your sides. See if you can put the weight evenly into both feet.
Now, if this is really feeling a challenge to keep your body steady and stable here, then this is your working place. If it feels like too much of a challenge beyond your edge for today, keep your big feet staggered, but take them a little wider. So whenever we make our stance wider, we're giving ourselves a stronger base of support. If you're feeling like you can add a little bit more challenge, we're going to take the front foot and put it so the feet are lined up on a little bit of a tightrope. Let's see how much I can do. And you'll notice I'm getting wobbly, so I'm going to try to find the place of tightrope where maybe I'm a little bit wobbly, but I'm not necessarily going to fall right over. Then just like we did in chair, we'll take the block in both hands. And it is okay to wobble. You will see me wobbling the whole time I'm fighting to keep my balance, trying to press both feet flat into the ground. And we'll just reach up the same way we did, pressing both hands into the block. This time, if it's comfortable for you, if you can keep your feet steady and your back from coming into a big arch, get a little bit more movement or mobility in the shoulder joints by taking the block a little bit higher. Maybe a little bit higher. Now at some point my shoulder blades kind of start complaining about here, so you might stop there. Stop wherever it is for you. And then reach and come back down. Wonderful. Let's go to the other side. Now you can just step one foot in front of the other. I'm going to do this little magic move. There we go. Now my opposite foot is in front. So remember, let's start with the feet about hip width. Take our mountain pose and see how that feels. I feel fairly stable here. I can keep my weight into both feet. So then I'm going to step my feet so that they're a little bit more in line. I might be a little bit more on a balance beam than a tightrope. Maybe that's a better image. So you don't have to be completely one foot in front of the other, but you're on a fairly narrow line if that works for you today. Hold there for a moment. Take a moment. I just noticed more of my weight was in my back foot, so I'm going to shift so I'm a little more even. Try to be a little more stable. Hands on either side of the block. Press into the block. And if you can, maybe moving as you inhale, reach the block any amount forward and perhaps moving toward overhead. A breath or two whenever you get to the point that the block stops for you. And come back down. All right, we'll do a little more standing work. We're going to take a hold of the other block in a moment, but first you can replace this block next to it. Take your feet wide. Wide-ish, wider than your hips, maybe a little wider than your shoulders. This is our default standing pose stance. I'm going to mirror you for these poses. So when I say right, it'd be my left, your right. So take your right foot and turn it out to the short end of your mat. Take your back foot and turn the heel a little bit out. So this is our staggered stance. We're going to bend the front knee, just scooching a little further apart so I feel stable. Bend the front knee so that it comes over the ankle, that you're at a place where you feel like you can put weight into both feet, and then we're going to come right back up. So we're going to do that a few times. Sink down. And this is just not feeling comfortable for me, so I'm going to step my back foot even a little further. Sometimes it's surprising. You can feel better with the back foot a little wider. So this is Warrior Two. We're going to take it into Warrior Two arms. Do this dynamically. Again, a little bit of warm up. So reaching the arms out into a T, glancing over the front finger. And then we're simply going to press the hands together in the middle. A few times like this. Now remember, doing these poses dynamically first helps warm us up a bit. It will help to work on your mobility, flexibility, which is part of your mobility. And then last time we're going to hold. And we'll find a place that feels challenging. That's your appropriate edge, where at the same time you feel that the weight is balanced over both feet. Now I just have my hand down. If you don't want to add the work of the arms in this, You can have your hands at your hips. You can keep them pressed to center. There's a lot of strength work for the legs, so adding the arms into it is completely optional. And same thing as we said before, that the longer you hold, then the more work you're going to do, the more strength work you're going to do. We're just going to hold this for one more breath, if you can, breathing in and out through your nose. And then on your next exhale, you can bring your hands down, push into both feet, turn your toes toward me, and we'll do the opposite. We'll take your left toes, will point straight out, your right toes will be a little bit turned in. So find that stance, and remember, you may be closer or wider than I am. We'll take a few times with the hand down, really just trying to play around with our stance and see, is this a good place for me today? It's different every day. And then once that feels pretty comfortable, we'll add the arms, going into warrior two, arms gazing over the front fingers, pressing our hands back together in the center. Moving with the breath, if that's comfortable, inhale down, exhale back to center. A few more. Let's do two more moving. Last one, and we'll hold. And so we find our position. We try to maybe slide a little bit to make sure that the weight is even over the front foot, the back foot, pressing on the outer edges of both feet, because we often tend to roll more to the inside. And wow, that little rolling motion with my hands felt good. You might turn your palms up for a little bit more stretch in your shoulders, working that joint a little bit more. There's a lot of ways you can explore in these poses. So you might see the classical or traditional pose, a great way to practice, and then you can play around and make it your own. All right, let's take the hands down to the hips, press into both feet, rooting to rise up. And let's heel toe the feet in towards center. We're going to do something similar with warrior two, moving to triangle, this time using both of the blocks. So take your two blocks, and now you want to have a little grip of the short ends with your blocks. This is going to test your grip strength a bit. So another little challenge for us, that's a good thing. If these are too thick, you can use something other than blocks. There are actually some blocks that are about half this width. You could use those, or you can hold on to water bottles, very light weights, 1 or 2 pounds. Any of those things are options. Small books. Let's take the feet apart, same way we started before. Let's turn your left toes out, right toes in. So we'll go into warrior two. We'll take the arms out as we did before, and then as we come up, we'll take the blocks overhead, coming to touch them together. That's going to be our first pose, and then we're going to play around with a triangle pose. So you can follow along with me. Let's take a breath in, reaching the palms away as you sink down into your warrior two. And you can hold for a moment or two here to adjust. And then turn the palms up, exhale, bring the blocks together over your head. I'm glad mine met. Now, if this is too much of a stretch in your shoulders, just let the blocks come a little bit more forward, maybe even right straight out. Any of those options are fine. Open the blocks back up into warrior two. Bring the blocks together above, in front, or somewhere in between. This is our third warrior two. Now you can keep the blocks up like that, or give your hands a little turn, a little bit more motion for your wrists. Let's do two more. I like that extra movement in my shoulder joint. And one more. All right, this time reach out with the blocks, so reaching both palms away. Straighten your front leg. We'll take the hands down for a moment. We'll stay in this position. As we move to triangle, we're going to take our hips back. So we do a little shimmy as you start to lean a little bit. I'm just leaning so my torso is still centered over my pelvis, still centered over my hips, my pelvis. So I'm not rounding my side body, keeping both sides of the body long. And then I'm going to stretch out the arms in the same way. I'm kind of a little tipsy triangle now. I'm going to start reaching, staying long in those side body. So I don't want to crunch. I don't want to let this front arm reach the way. Now, if the ground is close, in this version, the ground is not close here, so I'm just going to keep my arms apart. And this is a lot of work for my arms because, again, these light blocks are adding more weight than you'd expect. Now, if you stay here a little bit and you feel like you're a little closer, I can do that, keeping the integrity of keeping this long if I use just fingertips, or I can take the blocks, give them a little stack. Oh, that feels like a good place to practice today. And you'll notice I'm not leaning into this. I'm just using this actually as a reminder to root down, lift upright, and then open up with the top arm. So my chest turns a little bit toward the top arm rather than toward the bottom leg. If the top arm has gotten really tired by this point, simply come down here. Let's take another breath or two in this pose. And then I'm going to prepare to move by taking the blocks back to their original position, reaching up and away, pushing into both feet, and coming back up. All right, we'll switch the feet. Your right foot turns out, left toes turn back in a little bit. Remember that we'll start with the warrior two, doing it dynamically, a few repetitions, and then we'll move into the triangle. So reaching the arms away, bending the knee, taking a moment to find your warrior two. And then a little turn at the shoulders, turning the blocks up as you stand up to bring the blocks together. Coming back down into warrior two, and you can turn the shoulders, turn the blocks down. Coming back up, and remember that your up might be front. Opening into the third warrior two. Lifting tall. Open and lift. We're still trying to keep the weight even in both feet. Open. One more. Coming down. One more lift, and then next time down, we'll stay down, hands apart, straighten the front leg, bring the arms down for a brief rest. Kick the back hip out. Remember that's sort of going out, sliding, letting your torso come into a little lean, but not a bend at the side. So just a little bit lean, so our torso is still straight over our hips, at least at this angle. And then we'll continue reaching the blocks away from each other, staying in this kind of wide T position, letting your body get used to this position. And then most of us just will not reach the floor in this version, which is totally okay. But if you want, you can touch the block down, put the second block on top of it. And it's going to feel a little unstable, and that's okay because you're not putting weight on it. You're just using that as a little touch point, reaching the top arm up. Of course, this top arm stays down if it's tired, if something's going on with the shoulder that doesn't feel good for you. If your body is collapsing forward, see if you can actually use your hand to lift a little bit more toward me. And let's take another breath. And then if you want to do what I'm doing, you can grab the blocks again, reach far away, come back to stand. All right, let's scooch the feet in together, set the blocks aside, and we'll return to the floor. Coming down to hands and knees, we're going to start where we did before in the all fours position and take a few all fours to downward facing dog. So this is dynamic. Downward facing dog can build strength, but we're moving into more of the stretch mode of our practice. So this time we start with hands just a little bit in front of the shoulders because that gives us a better, stronger position for our downward dog. We tuck the toes here. If you want, you can take a little stretch into a cat. Let your back come back down to more of a flat back. Tuck your toes if they're not already tucked. Slide your hips back so now your shoulders are definitely behind your wrists. And from there, come up, not even to a straight leg down dog, just so that the Head starts moving between the upper arms. Your gaze can go between your feet. Maybe straighten your legs a little, but then come right back down into your tabletop. If you'd like, you can slide forward a little bit, maybe a little cow, and round up into cat. Find the center, engage. Slide your hips straight back, and then lift them up into a dog. And touch right back down. So we're not holding down dog at all today. We're just doing this little flow. And when you come up, you may feel some stretch in the back of the hamstrings. Notice that we're, again, asking the arms to do a little weight bearing. Let's do one last one. So I'm doing that little cow and then a cat because it does feel good in between. Returning to a more flat back, sliding the hips back, and then lifting up to down dog. Just one breath here, sending the heels back a little further if they'll go. And then exhale, touching the knees back down. Okay, we are going to come onto our backs. So we'll do a little bit more asymmetrical work, moving into the stretch. Hopefully this will be really relaxing as well. So that's an important component of getting older, is making time to let our bodies relax, rejuvenate, regroup, probably even more than when we were younger. Feet flat on the ground. I'm going to start on my right side. Bring your right knee in toward your chest and hold anywhere that's comfortable. So you can hold on your thigh, you can hold gently, not too firmly on the kneecap. We don't want to strain at the joint. Over your calf if that's possible. And if you can keep your back with that natural little arch of the curve of your back, you have an option to stretch this leg out long. Often when I'm doing more relaxed practice, I like keeping this knee bent, at least to some degree, maybe not all the way up, but at least a little semi-bend. It helps me to press my lower back closer to the floor so I don't feel uncomfortably arched there. Comfortably hug this knee in. You might feel a little compression where the front of your thigh meets your abdominal or your torso, and that's okay. Breathing into this feeling. And then keeping the hands holding the legs, either at the thigh or on the shin if you can reach. My arms are on the shorter side, so I'm going to stay more to the thigh. Start to lift the sole of the foot toward the ceiling. We're focusing more on keeping the leg close to us than getting this leg all the way straight. So if your leg comes out here, there's nothing wrong with that. Just in this particular movement, we're trying to keep the leg in and then lift. Maybe the leg doesn't come all the way straight. Let's just do that a few times. So going to wherever is a natural stop point for you. Maybe thinking again about that oiling the joint kind of idea. Also think about the back points of your hips staying pressed into the floor. So really nothing is moving here other than this knee joint. We're holding our leg in place. And then last time, reach the leg up, gently point your toes toward your face. Lift the heel toward the ceiling. See if it'll go any more. I think there's probably still a little bend in my knee. It's not completely straight leg. And then you can use your hands to explore whether this leg might come in a little bit. It's certainly okay to do a little bit of a motion. And if there's a place that you can hold your edge for today for a few breaths, go for that. And exhale, come down, and we'll switch legs. So readjust as you need to. Find the place where you want to keep the bottom leg supporting you on the ground. Draw the second leg in toward you, holding wherever is comfortable for you to hold, or that allows you to draw your leg in closer to your torso, that doesn't overly round your back or overly arch your back. So that's what we're going for. We're going for the back flat-ish on the ground, but there's still that natural curve at the low back. And the leg comfortably pulled in toward you. Now, if the hands just do not reach here, you can grab a sweater, a towel, whatever you have nearby, and wrap that around your leg. It's all good. Remember, if it doesn't compromise your back or change things, you can stretch this leg out long. I like to keep mine a little closer in. One more full breath cycle here. And if you were holding on top of the shin, you want to hold a little bit more underneath or on the sides as we start to keep the leg in close, but lift the sole of the foot toward the ceiling and come right back down again. A few times like that, keeping the leg hugged as close as is comfortable. Let's do one more. And in this last one, hold the leg, reach the foot a little bit more. And as you try to reach the leg a little straighter, don't just reach with the foot, reach these muscles across the back of your hamstrings, on the side, the IT band. Think about those muscles all engaging to lift the leg longer. And then the foot just naturally moves a little further away. And toes gently point toward your face, and see if you can take a little motion in, finding whether there's any range there. Even a millimeter is your range. Hold for a moment or two in your edge, and then release. All right, last bit on the floor, and then we will do a little bit of breath work to finish. We'll simply take the knees up into a chair, or they can stay on the ground. It's up to you. We're going to roll the knees into a twist. So the knees are going to roll toward me. And then sometimes I like to scooch my hips in the opposite direction, especially if you need more room on your mat like I do. And then you'll see my torso rolled toward you as I did this. I'm going to just push into my elbow to let my back come more toward the ground. Now my opposite shoulder is not all the way on the ground, but I'll reach my arms out either in a cactus or a T to encourage gravity to help it toward the ground. We didn't really do any twists in this practice, so this can feel really nice to help encourage relaxation. Now, I love twists, so if we weren't thinking about time, I'd probably stay here a good minute or two. We're only going to take about 3 breaths on each side. I'm looking at you to talk. You want your head either facing the ceiling, or if it's comfortable, you can turn it in the opposite direction if that feels okay on your neck. And then let's do those 3 breaths. Soften your gaze or close your eyes as you relax, letting your eyes be soft and unfocused as you breathe in and out through your nose. And one more breath. And then slowly bring your feet back to the floor. If you had scooched your hips, you can scooch them up in the opposite direction. And remember, you can just let your knees roll to the second side, or you can lift them up and then roll them over. So how high your knees are toward your chest, it will just change the sensation of where you feel that stretch in your back. Another thing that you can experiment with a little bit. Same thing as I did on the first side, taking my opposite elbow or this side where the knees are, pushing in a little bit to allow my spine to move in the other direction. And then the arms can be in that cactus or T shape or really anywhere in between, whatever feels good for you to open your arms. Remember that you can keep your gaze up toward the ceiling, or for more of a twist and adding the neck, look in the other direction of your knees. If that bothers your neck, don't do it. My top hand actually sometimes comes to rest here on my knees. That can be a good way if you're trying to keep your knees stacked to hold them in place, but it's also not necessary to keep your knees stacked. And we'll take those 3 breaths here. Okay, now you can come back onto your back, or you can continue to roll in the direction that your knees already are, using your arms, helping yourself up to a seated position. We'll finish with some brief breath work. Now you can be seated in a chair for this. You don't have to have your legs cross-legged, really whatever is comfortable and allows your spine to be upright. Take a few natural breaths in, feeling the breath in and out through the nose. If you're having a hard time breathing in and out through the nose, I encourage you to breathe in through the nose, allowing your nose to do the work of filtering the air, and then breathe out through the mouth. All right, we're going to move the breath in 3 directions, or at least think about that. So as we breathe in, the natural first direction is up and down. So next breath in, think about filling your breath up, filling your breath down, and exhale naturally. And then we'll think about front and back. Think about breathing into the front, breathing into the back, natural exhale, and then you got it out to the side. Feel as if you're breathing into your side ribs. And then last breath, feel as if you're breathing in all those directions. All right, a few natural breaths. We're going to do that series 2 more times. Now, if you feel like my breath's not going in this direction or that direction, completely okay. It's just the idea of trying to expand the breath in different directions. So let's start again, breathing the breath up and down. Natural breath in, natural exhale. Next breath in, breathing the breath front and back. Natural exhale. Next breath, breathing into the ribs, breath side to side. Exhale, and then try to feel as much as possible breath in all directions. And exhale. Last round, let's really try easy for this round. So breathe in, breath up and down. Exhale. Very subtle movement. Breathe in front and back. Exhale. Breathe in side to side. Exhale. And then try to take that breath into all directions. Taking as much air as possible, going to the end of your breath, and maybe a little slower, a little bit more expansive. Let all of that air out. All right, thank you for joining me for this over 50 practice. All of these practices are over 50 practices, so you can try any of the practices on this channel, but I tried to gear this one a little bit to maybe somebody who's a little newer to yoga or trying to try yoga for the first time over 50. Take a look at some of my other offerings up here. Subscribe to my channel. It will give you updates on when I post new videos. And if you like this, do give me a like button, comment, and let me know what you like or what you'd like to see more of. Thank you so much for joining me today.